Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire. Mcintire Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for our financial investment and retirement futures. He is president and founder of Mcintire Retirement Services. Chris Mcintire here with us. And Chris, a recent study of investors said that more than half that work with an advisor credited that relationship, the discussion, the advice of the advisor, with having saved more for retirement. So that alone, just giving us the incentive, giving us the motivation to do our part and what we all know we need to do, save more. One of the significant benefits of actually working with an advisor.
Yeah, it's a good perspective to have out there. You know, there's an accountability, I suppose, which helps lead to that. For making sure you're maxing out contributions and things along those lines. So it's good to hear some reports like that. You know, we live in a world where everybody is so conscious about costs and whatnot, and they think that, well, if I can do it cheaper, that's going to be better. And that's not always the case, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then working with an advisor, there may be opportunities that are identified that we didn't even know anything about. Hey, you're making this IRA contribution. Did you know that you can make a spousal contribution? Hey, did you know that you qualify for the catch-up contribution for your 401k at work now that you're over 50? Those kind of things are just simple advice. And you're right. I think the accountability, hey, this is what you should do. Are you doing it? Discussions with an advisor have benefits and merit. And then 7 out of 10 millionaires, Chris, 68% said that they worked with a financial advisor or financial professional to achieve their net worth. And then the Dalbar Institute does a similar study every year. Their annual report, by and large, cites that investors working with advisors have improved returns. So a number of different reasons why having a relationship with an advisor is significantly beneficial to our financial well-being.
Yeah, I agree with that there, Peter. And, our role as fiduciary advisors acting in the client's best interest, when they know that, they know they've got somebody that's trusted and on their side, and that helps make that win-win situation. That's good for everybody. And then, we as advisors often have access to different types of investment products and pieces that, as a general public, you don't have access to using some of the popular retail platforms. We have some unique arrangements with investment companies that, again, you're not going to find at a local broker office or at the bank's financial rep, if you will. That's fairly cookie cutter there.
Indeed. And Chris, I know that you've talked about some of these options that you do have available, hedging the downside, structured notes, some real estate investment pieces, all part of this diversified portfolio that you specifically and uniquely construct alongside each individual client. Some growth options, some safe options. There's a lot of middle ground there, but you have access to the spectrum of the financial world and help each and every individual client select and adjust, if needed, what is appropriate for their situation, for their goals. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like that individual approach to helping manage your finances, your investment, and structuring the plan for retirement, pick up the phone and give Chris Mcintire a call. That is the value of the program, general information and financial education, but also the ability to consult with an experienced, qualified professional on a personal level. Chris Mcintire, your resource. Give him a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. October, Chris, we hear about a lot of different scary things, ghosts, ghouls, goblins, the spooks and specters and all the like. But having an advisor also helps us to deal with some of these scary financial issues that we are all facing: market volatility, taxes, inflation, rising interest rates, healthcare down the road. Having that advisor relationship with any of those topics and issues can be a beneficial perspective and point of view and help to have guidance in addressing those issues as well.
Yeah, it does, Peter. We've had this year is certainly a challenging year with stocks down, bonds down, inflation being the hot word of the day anyhow, and challenges going forward, Russia, Ukraine. So sometimes it's nice to, talk to clients about the importance of having money working for you, like dividend paying stocks. Well, those stocks are going up and down in value, but those dividends are continually paying out, which are just profits that the companies pay out to shareholders. And if you own stock, you're a shareholder. And if you're reinvesting those dividends, you're buying more at low prices. So yeah, you can sit on the sideline in cash, but your money is truly doing nothing for you versus high quality dividend paying stocks and, looking for opportunities when the market dips. Do you put a little bit more to work in there? So, it's easy to say, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand until the market turns, but nobody knows when that is. And are you going to miss 10%, before you determine, all right, now I feel more confident to get back in? Said, yeah, you should, but you missed a significant bump in the market, and missing those big days has a drastic impact on long-term investment results. And, as painful as it is this year, it's important to stay in the game and have money situated to do things around your overall risk tolerance.
And Chris, looking back in history, we've seen charts and graphs on this program that show that some of the best days in the market happen directly after some of the worst days in the market. Some of the best years in the market happen directly after some of the worst years in the market. So it really is about keeping that disciplined approach and capturing upside when it's available, trying to minimize downside when it is present. And again, the guidance of an advisor to provide perspective, to keep us cognizant and remind us not to jump in at the wrong time and then back out at the wrong time and then repeat that process until we eventually go broke. That is going to be helpful for our long-term financial well-being, constructing that plan and then sticking to it, helping us to remain accountable to that plan. Chris, do you find that a lot of people are wary of the market volatility and therefore maybe having idle money that is sitting around in cash? Are you seeing a lot of that this year, money that's not really working for anyone? Yes, avoiding some of the market losses, but also not making any progress or gains.
Yes. And when you're sitting on the sidelines in cash, you don't know what those opportunities you're missing are going to look like in 5 and 10 years from now when the market takes off over a long-term market cycle. So, it's really hard to coach people through some of these, areas of volatility, because they're looking at it on a daily basis, not thinking more in the macro. They're looking more in the micro. Yeah, in the micro, it looks terrible. In the macro, 5 or 10 years from now, for those of you that are still working, and you said, well, I stopped putting money in my 401k because the market was down. That's the definition of the insanity. Why wouldn't you want to buy when it's down? Those returns, will impact down the road, and you just don't know when it's going to turn. And I get it. It's been a challenging year. I got money in the market as well, as you do too, Peter. We feel the brunt of it as well. But we just have a different understanding. We live in a different world. We get different insights. We're not tuned into what the business channel is saying on a minute by minute basis. They got to fill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so, we know what to listen to, what not to listen to, I guess.
Again, if you would like perspective, help, assistance with your planning, pick up the phone, give Chris Mcintire and Mcintire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. I received a very nice PSA kind of email from your office, from Heidi in your office here this week, Chris, reminding us that, hey, we are already in the tail end of the year. And if we have not taken those required minimum distributions, if we are of the age of 72 or above, have not taken those required minimum distributions, it's time to jump on that and get that process going.
Yeah, it sure is. And I'm laughing here because if you want to make the phone ring, send that email out. And I remember the day Heidi did that. it was nonstop. It's like, look, check your accounts first. A lot of, we have hundreds of clients, obviously. So, and Heidi, we give great service. So everybody said, I'm just going to call Heidi real quick and she can look,
Yeah. But generally you guys are proactive helping people with that process throughout the year. This is just kind of the last minute reminder call. And last minute for a planning professional actually isn't the last minute. You're doing it well in advance and proactively.
Yeah, exactly. We look at Roth conversions, that type of thing here at this time of year as well, with the market being down. Maybe it makes sense to, entertain that strategy. And, from our standpoint, if you've got 4 different IRAs, you could have 4 different distributions. So sometimes people turn them on, turn them off. Take money out of one, not take money out of the other. They do qualified charitable distributions. And for us, a lot of that stuff's very labor intensive, because you have to make sure that, all right, they did cut the check for the right amount to go to the charity, and they did deposit the rest of the required minimum distribution in Mrs. Jones's account, for example. And so, we like to promote that because it's good for the charities, but boy, it adds another layer of administration to Heidi and Robin's job, and they do a very good job of it, of course.
Well, again, things that I think that not all of us envision becoming full-time financial professionals, planning professionals when we retire. We retire from our job to not have to worry about the money. And then if we don't have a plan, if we don't have a relationship with a planner or advisor such as yourself, Chris, that sends out those kind of helpful reminders and proactive suggestions on strategies, we may overlook opportunities or costly requirements. I believe, Chris, that the RMD missing that required distribution ends up resulting in one of the heaviest personal penalties that the IRS levies.
Yes, and it can be up to 50% of the distribution you miss. So a quick example, if you were to take out $5,000 based off of the required minimum distribution and you forgot that, the penalty is $2,500 plus income tax.
Plus you still owe tax on the full 5,000. It's that's a hefty one, not to be missed or overlooked. Again, why it's beneficial to have that relationship, and so many other areas. Again, Chris, 68% of millionaires accredit building their wealth to a relationship with an advisor. More than half of those working with an advisor say they have saved more as a result, not to mention the returns that they've received on what they save. But the Dalbar Institute's annual study continually points out over the last 35 years that investor returns are improved through working with an advisor. So again, these and all of the other reasons that we have talked about on this program, ladies and gentlemen, reasons to be proactive and reasons to have that relationship with an advisor. Chris Mcintire, your resource. He offers you the opportunity to get that conversation started. No cost, no obligation. All you need to do is pick up the phone and give a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, the new Inflation Reduction Act that we have seen and heard a lot about, it advertised no new tax increases for those making less than $400,000, but it failed to address the change in tax laws that was already in place that is going to be pushing our taxes up in a few short years. Can you talk about that increase that is on the horizon and what savers and investors and proactive planners need to know?
Yeah, and not to get political, but remember when President Trump was in office, they had what they called the Trump tax cuts, which was really targeted toward middle class. It took the 25% income tax bracket to 22. It took the 15% tax bracket to 12%. And, those are never permanent type of tax reductions. Okay? They last for 10 years. So they sunset here in 2026. And, so if they don't, bump them out another 10 years or whatever the frame of that they want to use, then taxes are going to increase for millions of Americans in 2026 and, in a very high inflation environment. So the last thing I think any of us would really want is for the middle class to, deal with high rates of inflation and then a tax increase as well. Cause I did the math on it back then, and, I haven't, you hit me with this question, but I think it was like $1,500 difference from, if you maxed out at the 15% bracket to maxing out at the 12% tax bracket. I mean, that's $1,500 for, lower wage earners. Obviously our tax system gets progressively higher. The more money you make, you hit a different bracket. So that piece gets taxed at a higher rate. I mean, that's a big $1,500 for folks in the bottom two tax brackets. No question about it.
Yeah. And that progressive tax system, Chris, means the higher the income that you have, the higher the net worth that you have, specifically in tax deferred retirement accounts, if you've done a good job in saving and accumulating. But overlooking tax planning opportunities, being proactive, makes it that much more of a costly mistake for those people, because not just the multiple of the dollars, but the progressive tax system actually taxes those higher dollars at higher amounts.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it gets progressively worse. So the more success you have, the more money you're paying to the federal government, and even sometimes state taxes also can progress upwards as well. And, that's why a lot of people might retire and go into a tax-friendly state. That's why we talk about Roth conversions, to manage your tax situation right now. And, we call that legislative risk. We don't know what Congress is going to enact down the road that's going to have an impact on our retirement. So yeah, we certainly have legislative risk. A good example of that would be when they got rid of the stretch IRA provisions and went to the 10-year payout on IRAs for non-spousal beneficiaries. That was a significant piece of legislation. They did away with file and suspend strategies for married couples with Social Security. So again, a piece of legislation that can change things. If they're going to change capital gains taxes, you have to be able to pivot and be flexible around some of these changes and understand that there is no better rate of income tax to pay than zero, which means Roth IRAs can make sense with either contributing if you're still working or converting if you're retired. Anybody can convert. Okay? Not everybody can contribute. And then, I'm a big advocate of the cash value inside life insurance policies, because that's also an income tax free, and you might buy a nice policy that's got a long-term care benefit and things along those lines. So sometimes we can, I'd say, for lack of a better word, kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, using some of these different types of strategies. But that's the benefit of being independent. Nobody's telling us what we have to do to meet the corporate guidelines. We're independent. We know what's in the client's best interest.
And again, that personal relationship with an advisor helps to uncover your goals, your specifics, the situation that you have, and make sure that the plan is structured specifically to address your situation and your future financial goals. And if you'd like to have such a plan, if you'd like to work with that fiduciary advisor looking out for your best interest, pick up the phone, give Chris Mcintire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, those healthcare costs, they can be exorbitant. And I know that you work with individuals who are encountering those costs. I have talked with individuals who have encountered those costs. You're talking about, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 extra dollars a month in addition to the baseline regular living expenses. That can be very challenging to even plan proactively to address. But there are ways that if we are proactive, we can certainly minimize or help to control those costs, correct?
Correct, Peter. And a lot of people are naive enough to think that, look, it's going to be my neighbor that goes into the nursing home. It's not going to be us, and then it's going to be the guy across the street. It's not going to be us. And, I've got older parents. My wife's got a 93-year-old father who, needs some help here and there. Thankfully, they're still living at home. We have a dear friend that we're responsible for that. It's $8,000 a month in a nursing home right now, going on year number 4 here, starting this winter. And, do the math on that. I mean, it's crazy expensive. Thankfully, they had planned for that, and they have a an insurance policy that pays for most of that bill. And a lot of people think that, hey, Medicare is going to take care of me. The government's going to take care of me, but the government may do that, okay, at the cost of your life savings until you get down to meet the Medicaid, provision. So, if you've had some success, all of you have taken the risk of your house burning down because it's one of your largest assets. You've taken that off the table, and it has like a 1 in 1,200 chance of happening. You got a 50% chance of needing some time in a nursing home care that most of you are going to have to pay for it yourself. I mean, why wouldn't you want to hedge that risk? Because that one's a lot more expensive than the house burning down.
Yeah, but Medicaid is there as a means of last resort, and only if you have burned through and spent down all your other resources does Medicaid step in. And I know that there are certain structures and protections that you can put things in place, but essentially you are also limiting your own ability to access those assets should you set those things up. And there's also certain protections for a spouse, but you're not talking about preserving the financial well-being or standard of living of a healthy spouse in those circumstances. So again, being proactive, planning ahead, looking at the potential alternatives and the options to address that, to leverage your money and protect against those costs, Chris, is something that all savers and investors really need to take a pretty long and serious look at.
Yeah, without question, Peter. And, most people are not going to risk their life savings by having 100% of their money in the stock market 100% of the time. They're going to diversify that risk, right? They've got protection in case they crash their vehicle. They've got protection in case a house burns down. They've got health insurance, or Medicare to cover, the ongoing expenses, and leave this huge gap that could be very financially detrimental to, not only their resources, their spouse's resources, as you said, but also what could potentially pass on to children. Why would you want to spend $300,000 on the nursing home when you could pass it on to charities or something like that for, if you have some decent health, for the menial, amount of coverage on that is sometimes mind-boggling, but I live in this world, and, some people can't afford it. Some people aren't healthy enough to get it. And that part is fine. We certainly have to respect that, but still doesn't mean you don't have other sorts of plans in place, and, using some legal means with an attorney and whatnot to say, hey, what's the plan if I went into the nursing home? Is there anything we can do ahead of now? Should I be putting my house in an irrevocable trust now? That type of thing as well are also tools and resources that are available for everybody.
Talking with your planning team, ladies and gentlemen, formulating those plans to help achieve your goals, but also protect, where possible, your assets and well-being. Pick up the phone, give Chris Mcintire a call to start that conversation. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Wrapping up the show, Chris, the two concerns that I am hearing about the most, really top of mind and high line conversations on everybody's lips, really. And certainly in the news, we're hearing a lot about the market volatility and inflation. How are these things going to play out? And how do we plan to address these constant potential realities now and into the future?
Yeah. And, and you've got China, Taiwan, you've got Russia, Ukraine, upsetting the energy markets out there. So we truly have what you would call an energy crisis in the United Kingdom. Their inflation's running about 20%. You've got, much higher rates of inflation in the European international markets than we do here in the United States. And, we're raising interest rates very significantly. And, that's cause and effect, right? There are impacts that happens, and probably going to affect the housing market very significantly, pricing people out of mortgages, with interest rates up north of 6%. Who knows where they could be next year, but they've got to get this inflation under control. And, on one hand, we have, a government that comes out with an anti-inflation bill, which is a massive spending piece, so a foot on the accelerator. We got the Federal Reserve with a foot on the brake. So I think we need, maybe a little better cohesiveness there, working together instead of working apart, because you don't go down the highway with your foot to the floor on the gas pedal and your foot to the floor on the brake, trying to not do anything,
And the same in our personal portfolio, though, Chris, as well. We wouldn't expect to have the opportunity for growth on our assets, but safety at the same time, kind of the gas and the brake scenario. For those individual goals, we really need to dedicate specific pieces of our money and kind of time optimize that portfolio due to the potential for risk and volatility in the market continuing.
Sure. There's risk in bonds, there's risk in stocks, and you have to, have that conversation with yourself and, look, where is the thresholds for the pain, if you will? And this has been a painful year. I think everybody's kind of triggered and hit some of those thresholds. And, does it make sense to have a safe strategy? If you don't have one in place already, it's certainly worthy of consideration. And it just simply means you have another resource, outside of, the risk and volatility of stocks and bonds. And we utilize those for, over the last 20 years for many different investors, different shapes and sizes. And explore all of the opportunities that are out there that, you're not going to catch on CNBC, which talks about individual stocks basically, or Fox Business News, whatever you're watching. They're not giving financial investment advice. They're talking about the hot stock of the day or the weak stock of the day, so to speak, trying to make news. And, it's either a market sell-off or a market recovery. It's not, all right, this is just what the market does over the course of an economic cycle.
And we've covered a lot of ground on today's program, Chris. A lot of scary issues that we are facing right now. The number one on most lists for retirees is outliving assets. And I know that helping people plan to make money last is one of the specific areas that you focus on there at Mcintire Retirement Services.
Yeah, without question, creating income plans, and in an environment like today, it's where we pride ourselves on having skills and many different types of investments and places where we can put money to generate income, from dividend paying stocks to structured notes, to the fixed index annuity space, having some income riders on those types of vehicles. And, I suppose I could say here, something that we'll see a bright spot down the road is that as interest rates have risen, bond interest rates are going to go up as well. So creating income portfolios in a couple of years is going to get better because we can get higher yields. Now, obviously, we need to get inflation down there so that the inflation rate of inflation is not eating up the yield, but we'll get there eventually. So, that's having the ability to look at some of the bright spots and understanding how market conditions work versus going out and playing golf with four of your buddies that, don't live in this world. And, you're trying to talk like you should be on CNBC. I get it.
Well, again, Chris, I think a whole lot goes into each one of these issues that we've discussed today. They probably each deserve their own program in their entirety. We'll probably get to them at some point in time, but working with and trusting an advisor, a reliable resource for guidance, taxes, inflation, market corrections, long-term care, outliving assets. These are some of the biggest issues, ladies and gentlemen, that you can address by working with an advisor. And 7 out of 10 millionaires cite that working with an advisor has helped them achieve their wealth and net worth. More than half of investors say that they have saved more as a result. And that Dow Bar survey year after year for the last 35 years have said that the returns for investors working with advisors have been improved significantly. So if you are looking for a resource to work with, to talk with, just to have a review and analysis, Chris Mcintire offers that as an extension of this program, no cost, no obligation, to sit down with you and help you design your game plan for retirement, get a better understanding of the risks that you're taking, the fees that you're paying, and the taxes that you are liable for, how to control those things into the future. Pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, as always, a pleasure getting the opportunity to speak with you, to see you here on the podcast. Look forward to it each and every week. Thank you for being our resource.
Hey, my pleasure, everybody. Have a great weekend out there. Stay safe.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.